Hey everyone, welcome to another KE Report editorial. This is a special daily editorial as it's a video editorial, and I am getting an update from Vizsla Silver, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol VZLA and on the NYSE under that same symbol VZLA. I am joined again by the president and CEO, Mike Konnert, as well as Jesus Velador, the Vice President of Exploration at Vizsla Silver. What we're going to do here is walk through a bit more of the history of this Panuco project and more so the discovery story. I was on a site visit a couple months ago at this project, and walking through the core shack really gave a nice overview of how this program, how this project has progressed in terms of discoveries over about a 2 to 3 year period. Now, one thing I think that we all know investing in this sector is that the first discovery, even the first drilling on a project, is rarely the company maker. And at the Panuco project, there's been so many different discoveries that have, in a way, kind of added to the story here. So, as a little background on the project, it was consolidated back in 2019. And Mike, maybe I'll get you to talk about the overall vision here. Back in 2019, when you saw this opportunity come about, what drew you to the Panuco project, and just how much consolidation did you have to do?
Yeah, thanks, Corey, and excited to be doing this. It's special, a little different than what we typically do, so this will be fun. I think first of all, it's worth talking about Vizsla's vision, which is to become one of the world's largest silver primary producers here through this project. And when we first came up with that vision, it seemed like a really grandiose vision, something really difficult for a company of our size. But as we continue to grow and explore here, what we're realizing is that this has all of the hallmarks of one of these mega silver and gold districts in Mexico. Very similar in a lot of ways to San Dimas, which is about 80 kilometers to the north of us. And as a matter of fact, it looks like we're looking at something like a Sinaloa silver belt, where there's a connection between what we see here at Panuco and San Dimas. San Dimas, of course, produced over 600 million ounces of silver and 11 million ounces of gold historically. We have a little bit of catching up to do, but it's exciting for us here to look at what we've explored so far. And really, it all started with consolidating the two halves of this district for the very first time in modern history. There's been just around 100 drill holes in its entire history on this property. Most of them focused on small postage stamps of concessions, but in reality, there'd never even been any type of systematic exploration at this project, which is really quite an interesting characteristic, seeing as it's right on the side of a highway. There's two highways that run through the property, but we were able to consolidate the two halves of this district, which previously had been consolidated by two private Mexican mining companies. And then by doing that, we unlocked a huge amount of value here. As you can see on this map, many of these veins cross over different directions, and if you're constrained by concessions, it makes it very difficult to explore in any meaningful way. So by doing that, we've unlocked a huge amount of value here, and over the years, we've raised a lot of money for the company. We've had a lot of success. We have an excellent shareholder base, and we look forward now to growing our existing resource, which we put out earlier this year in 2023, which is the world's largest undeveloped high-grade silver resource. And going forward, 2024, we look to add to that resource with an update in early January, early next year here in 2024, and then beyond, a PEA de-risking the western portion of this district while exploring for other centers of mass throughout this map that we're looking at here.
So, Jesus, let's bring you in here and talk about where the exploration started, because we can see on this map the center of mass, as the company has termed it, down in this southwestern area of the project. It's not actually where the company started drilling. Take us through where you initially started some of the exploration work on this project.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Yeah, of course. Well, after consolidation of the Panuco Project in 2019, the company started the exploration where it made most sense to the company and to the geos, taking care of the exploration. And that area was the central area of the project. This central area, made a lot of sense to go right here initially, because this is the area that has the most developments and has seen the most silver production, historic production, particularly the Animas Rosario zone over here. And this is where the company put the first drill holes in this area. Well, unfortunately, the drilling results, although intercepting structure, weren't the most high-grade results after these first initial holes. But the company decided to shift gears a little bit to the west into what is called, as you mentioned, the center of mass of the project. So initially, what the company did is go right after the Napoleon vein structure into the central zone of Napoleon. And here is where the company made the first discovery in 2020, in the year 2020, by drilling the Napoleon hole number 2, or second hole in Napoleon, with over 1.5 kilos at over 8.2 meter wide structure. So this is where the first discovery happened here at Napoleon, and actually this was the trigger for many other discoveries afterwards. So right after the recognition of the high grades in Napoleon and its huge potential, so the company went forward and continued expanding with the step out drill holes to the north. So and essentially continue finding high grades along the strike of the structure. All that happened during 2020. Also, the year 2020 was the year of the discovery for the Tajios vein in the Copala area. So a lot of these two very important discoveries, that made most of the initial maiden resource that was published in 2022 happened here in this zone in 2020.
This Tajios discovery, that was a big one for the company too, because from my understanding, this was more of a hidden target. Napoleon came to surface, but Tajios, that was a bit trickier, wasn't it?
Well, Tajios was a bit trickier, although it daylights at some point close to Copala, and there's actually an old mine that is called the Tajito, because it is like an open cut right on surface that exposes Tajitos mineralization. But what wasn't unknown to us was the total strike length of the structure. So with drilling, essentially, what we made aware that the structure was actually longer, over 1.1 kilometer strike length, and also that with all these depth extent to the depth that we know it right now at the moment. And as I said, all this happening in the year 2020, and by 2021, essentially the company focused on resource expansion and infill drilling along the Napoleon and the Tajios vein. So, except for the discovery of the Josephine vein that happened in 2021, there wasn't many discoveries in 2021, as most of the drilling, was dedicated to the expansion of resources, the expansion of the extensions of Napoleon on Tajitos. But that scenario changed in 2022, where the company allocated, its largest drilling budget in the history of the company, and also the largest budget that has ever been drilled in the Panuco district in its whole history. And that budget, with over 120,000 meters drilled, resulted in multiple discoveries in 2022. So 2022 was actually the best year in terms of discovering new deposits in Panuco district, because that's when we announced the discovery of Copala. Copala, it's a pretty much flat line structure on the north part, and it sits at the hanging wall of Tajios. And this is actually the blind structure that sits on this area. This wasn't, you know, making it all the way up to surface, so it's blind essentially. And this was discovered through the expansionary drilling of Tajios to the north. So in early 2022, we had the discovery of Copala, and we also discovered other veins like the Cruz Negra in 2022, and by late 2022, we also announced the discovery of La Luisa over here. And throughout this 2022 year, besides these very significant discoveries, we also did a lot of expansion. First of all, in 2022, we announced our maiden resource, that essentially was the culmination of all the drilling through 2021. But also in this 2022, was the year for the expansion of Napoleon to the southeast. Napoleon grew from 1.4 kilometers to 2.5 kilometers during 2022. So it was also a significant growth in terms of resources. As I mentioned, the discovery of Copala, but also Copala in 2022. Copala grew from 400 meters to 900 meters, and yeah, essentially it was a very good year.
Mike, I want you to comment on 2022 because this is one of those big growth steps for the company where you had a couple drill programs, you built out a maiden resource, and then you went out to expand on the resource areas, but you were also looking for new discoveries. And that's when you made arguably 3 new discoveries in 2022. And Copala, in a way, just added some torque to what we now have as the current resource. So take us through, as a company, after you had a couple discoveries and you built out a resource, 2022 was a big growth year.
Well, yeah, and we didn't really know what Copala was going to become. It represented maybe 20% of the overall resource that we put out, our maiden resource. And then in the second resource, it was half of it, and it continues to be half of the project's resources. It grew so quickly and so aggressively with so much high grade that it was a total game changer for us. And that discovery hole was about 82 meters at 250 grams or something like that. It was just crazy. And the typical mine in Mexico, you have to remember, is like a 2-meter thick vein, and that's good. And the grade is 250 grams per ton, and that's good. That's kind of what you see in Mexico at most operations. But what we're seeing here is a 10-meter thick vein that runs over a mile with extremely high grades across the structure. So it was a total game changer for us. At one point we had 13 rigs on the property, turning all exploration rigs. So we've had a huge amount of exploration dollars, budget, efforts going into this project. And so, to see it respond very well, I think we talk about this a lot, but it's really what an exploration project looks like that's going well, that's succeeding, in a tier 1 district. So we're thrilled by that, and this is just what we've done in a few short years. I'm confident that there's going to be many other new discoveries just like that throughout this district, and Jesus and his team have been diligently working on that and have had a huge amount of success so far. So, all the credit goes to the exploration team here.
So we will talk about some of the other future areas of exploration, but then after 2022, with the main resource out and these new discoveries, the company really did focus on resource expansion, infilling some of Napoleon, infilling and stepping out at Copala, as well as some gap zones. So Jesus, can you just explain and more recap this year, the drilling that has happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, as you mentioned, 2023 was a year for resource infilling and expansion. After realizing of the potential of Copala, so we definitely took care of a lot of expansion through Copala. So this year, what we have seen in terms of growth at Copala was a little bit over 100 growth in terms of footprint of the mineralized body at Copala. And right now, what we know or what we have defined with drilling to the southeast in Copala is almost 1.7 kilometers strike length of mineralization. Another thing that we are realizing at Copala is that there are at the south we have some other place, so it's behaving in some way like Napoleon in the south, where you instead of having just one major structure, you start developing multiple displays, and some of them carrying some very good grades. But that was for Copala. So lots of infill, particularly in the north and the central parts of the deposit, which is also the closer mineralization, closer to surface mineralization, and a lot of expansion to the southeast, which is a little bit deeper mineralization. So it's more like the future of the deposit. In Napoleon, it's a similar story or similar scenario, where you have in the north, you have the mineralization closer to surface, and as you progress to the south, the mineralization starts getting deeper. And so this portion of Napoleon to the south is where we drilled the most meters during 2023. Most of the drilling over here was infill drilling, to upgrade infill resources into the indicated categories. But that was with respect to to resource areas or non-resources. But during 2023, something that we also accomplished is besides the discovery of the La Luisa, we took care of a lot of expansion through La Luisa. Essentially, we have kept 2 drill rigs at La Luisa. 2 of them initially on the southern part of La Luisa, and then we realized there was mineralization closer to surface on the north. So this year, we have drilled like probably around 40 drill holes at La Luisa that managed to grow the high grade shoot on La Luisa, for a little bit over 1.6 kilometers now.
Okay. So there's still a lot of expansion potential in this western area, but let's look ahead now, because as we can see, there's the central area, which you have done some work on, and this east area that is a bit newer for the company to get on the ground there. What can investors expect then in terms of leaving the western area, which you will continue to work on? Where else could you have maybe some other center of masses on this project?
Right. Well, let me just, before moving to the east area or the central and east area, just to comment something. I was forgetting about one other discovery that happened during 2023, and that was El Molino. This El Molino vein was discovered through combination drilling between Copala, essentially between Copala and Tajios and Napoleon, over here. And this happened through combination. So and what it tells you is the potential of making additional discoveries through drilling, discoveries of blind mineralization that we haven't realized yet. So that's still, besides the expansion or potential that we have in known structures, we still have some upside potential in structures that haven't even made it to the surface. And now let's move to the central and east area. Over 2023, we have accomplished a lot of surface mapping through the property. The property is pretty big. It's 7,200 hectares total. The consolidated project of the area. And so mapping it's quite an endeavor. First of all, because of the topography. The topography it's a challenge, and also because of vegetation. Particularly for most of the year, the area is covered by thick vegetation, and it makes even tougher mapping because in order to map and find a structure, you need to be able to recognize lithologies and find veins. So in 2022, we decided to acquire LiDAR surveys that is allowing us actually to map the terrain surface and find, lineaments, veins, all pits, all mines, trenches, dug by old timers in the area. and this has been a real success for the mapping and prospecting team. This kind of survey, has allowed us to map multiple veins, but particularly on the east side, because the central area of the project, is where the district has seen the most mining activity in the past. So a lot of veins have been already discovered, mapped, and mined at some degree, not extensively at depth, but have been mined at some degree in the central portion. Plus, the east area if it is not a virgin area, it is very close to be a virgin area in terms of discoveries. It hasn't seen the least drilling or none at all drilling throughout history. This is part of the district. And, with this LiDAR and extensive mapping at 1 to 1,000 scale, we have been able to make discoveries of new veins showing very significant silver and gold grades right on surface, even some grades over 400 grams silver with 2-3 grams gold, essentially right on surface. And in terms of the future exploration of the district, what we are planning is to definitely go over to the east and start, drilling these low-hanging fruit, which is high-grade, veins with high grades showing right on surface.
Okay, so more discovery over there, or more discovery potential on the eastern side. Mike, wrap us up then. Looking not just into next year, because you and I are going to do an individual call where we outline the plans for next year, but in terms of multiple years out, how does the company go about allocating your resources focused on still growing the current large resource, making new discoveries, and then potentially even moving into some sort of development or construction?
Well, the way that I look at this and the path forward is, first of all, there's really only one Vizsla out there. It's a unique company. Silvercrest had a huge amount of success building a mine at their project Las Chispas, but certainly didn't have that same type of expansive discovery upside that we see here. Meg Silver, an incredible discovery, actually made by Jesus in part with Dr. Peter McGaw as well. So there's some very direct experience with Meg Silver, but of course Meg Silver joint venture with Fresnillo. We have this huge district that we own 100%, that we consolidated ourselves, and we have the best of both worlds between Silvercrest, Meg, but it's also something that we haven't seen in the market for many, many years in the silver market. And these things often fetch, huge valuations when people care about these precious metals. So first of all, in less than a few years, I expect us to have that very large, more reflective valuation and share price that, that we certainly deserve. And in order to get there, we have a dual path. And, the first is to de-risk the resource that we already have. First step there, put out an updated resource in January of 2024, and then follow that up with a PEA. PEA, I believe, is going to show robust economics. It's going to show, a very strong NPV with a correlated low capex. I think we can build this project because it's been called a sidewalk San Dimas. It's off the sidewalk of this highway here. Because of that, we have a chance to build this for a very low capex, which certainly helps the economics and is attractive to investors. And then as we do that, side by side, discovery and de-risk. So de-risk the west, discover in the proximal area, and make new discoveries in the resource extension area as well. But then, I envision 4 or 5 of these circles here across this district. Again, very similar to San Dimas, that it's 80 kilometers away, 600 million ounces of silver, 11 million ounces of gold. I think that's where we're heading. We just need to take the steps towards that.
Okay. Hey guys, thank you very much for this walkthrough of the discoveries. I hope that this has been helpful to a lot of investors or those of you watching this company. I just found it interesting when I was on site to see kind of the progress that the company has seen over those about 3 years of drilling and the growth in terms of discoveries, and then also going over the whole project where the company is focused next with the potential of new discoveries. So, Mike, thank you for your time. Jesus, very nice having you on the show. we will follow up again as more news comes out of the company with more drill results and the continued advancement of this project. But very much so, this discovery update here, I think, is helpful. Mike, Jesus, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.